Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of Shardcast. I'm your host, Frotelvania, and we're going to bring you the second part of the MythicFishMom Karn exhibition doubleheader. If you missed the first game, tune back over to episode 14, as we featured their first match. They went back-to-back in an exhibition duel there, and this will be the second matchup of the two. And if I recall correctly, both are using the same exact decks they used on the first match. Karn won the first match with 24 health, beating Karn with a 5 resource life siphon in the game. So hopefully, like I said before, this will work out better for MythicFishMom this time around. So without any more commentary from me, we're going to go ahead and head back over to the battlefield and see how this one works out. And looks like Sony is going to mulligan. Didn't get a chance to look at all 7 there. And with only blood shards in hand, he's going to mulligan again, down to 5 cards. He will keep this one, looks like 2 blood shards, a sapphire shard, a murder, and a life siphon. And Karn. Let's see if he... we didn't get a chance to look at the coin flips. I'm not quite sure who goes first here. I believe MythicFishMom's going to go first. And we're just waiting on him to decide whether or not he wants to keep his hand or not. He mulligans down to 5 as well, so both players starting with 5 cards in hands to 7. Mithonia plays a blood shard for turn and passes it over. Karn and Mithonia both a little disdainful about the cards they were dealt the first couple times around, as we can tell by the chat box down there. Karn is going to draw a card for turn, bringing him up to 6. Plays a blood shard as well. And he's going to play a charge bot, which is a 1/1 troop, but gives him a charge power, giving his champion the ability to play it immediately. And let's see if Karn chooses to do so. He does. So Mithonia down to 19, Karn up to 21. That little mouse arrow on the screen is not mine. That is Mithonia's as we're watching his feed, so don't try to follow along with the mouse and what I'm trying to say here. Make you look confused. Karn passes turn, and Mithonia will draw a card for turn. It is an extinction. He will drop a sapphire shard, and with nothing cost to be able to play, he will pass turn back over, because all 3 of his cards he can play are all double blood threshold. He hasn't met that yet, so. If you're just joining us, new to Hex, this is the Hex TCG, digital TCG by Cryptozoic. We are in the alpha stage of the game. So this isn't the complete version, as Karn draws a card for turn and swings his 1/1 charge bot into Mithonia. We'll go down to 18 health. Familiar with TCGs at all, this will look a little familiar to you. If not, oh, sorry about that. Another technical difficulty, and we're back. Okay, good. Sorry about that. This will look a little familiar to you. The champions are a little bit different. I'll explain them in just a second, but this is a TCG by Cryptozoic, who were the makers of the WoW TCG. So they are familiar themselves. If you want more information, go to www.hextcg.com for more details. Mithonia draws a murder, start of his turn, and will play a blood shard. And with 2 blood threshold now, which you can see in the top left-hand corner of the card by those 2 purple dots. That's what you need to be able to cast the card if you're new. That number is how many resources total. This is my mouse this time around. You can see down here, those are the total resources Mithonia has available. These are the resource threshold he's met by playing the resource shards for each of his turns. So if you're new to this game, that's a little bit of an insight into it, but I would recommend finding a... Actually, I'd recommend going to Hex TCG's Kickstarter page, where they've got a wonderful, wonderful intro video there to kind of give you the ins and outs on how the game's played. So Mithonia will not use any of his cards in hand and pass it back over to Karn. Start to Karn's 3rd turn. As he goes through his prep phase here, draws a card for turn, going up to 5. And will swing his charge bot again. Mithonia, let's see if he decides to murder the 1/1 charge bot. I would think not. a waste of a murder card in my opinion, and he chooses not to. Going down to 17 health. Karn plays a Ruby Shard on his second main phase, lighting up his charge power again. So he goes up to 22 health this time, Mythonia down to 16, and plays a Zentos Inquisitor on his second main phase. 3/1 troop for 3 cost, and whenever it dies, it goes back to his hand and gains a permanent cost of +2. That's the one thing about this Hex TCG is compared to other TCGs that you may have played or seen before. A lot of the abilities that are put on the card are permanent abilities, which means even if they're bounced back to your hand and go to the graveyard or whatnot, they do not lose that power. So Mythonia now with 4 resources facing 2 troops on board. We'll see if he decides to extinct here. Probably just murder the Inquisitor. Because the charge bot's really not posing much of a threat, and I don't know if he wants to wipe the whole board just for that charge bot. With 2 murders in hand, I think he'll probably want to waste one of them on the Inquisitor here. But waste being a relative term. Spend, I guess would be a better term there. Karn will bypass the first main phase and swing both troops, and as suspected, Mythonia, no, chooses not to murder here. He's going to go ahead and take all 4 damage, I'm sorry. Down to 12 health. Karn's got 3 resources still available, as you can tell in the top left-hand corner beside his name there. 3 temporary, 3 permanent. And he's got 3 total resources, and he hasn't used any this turn. We'll see if he chooses to spend any of those on his second main phase. He does have 4 cards in hand. Mythonia has 4 cards in hand as well. If you're following along without the video there. 2 murders, an extinction, and a life siphon. I think Karn's probably... Yep, he's going to choose a life siphon here. For all 3 resources he has, bringing his health total to 25. I'm bringing Mythonia down to 9. Just a little bit of pressure on Mythonia if you followed in the previous episode of Shardcast. This is pretty much how Karn defeated him the first time around. Is he did a little bit of damage here, a little bit of damage there, and kind of blasted him with a couple life siphons there. So we'll see if we're seeing a carbon copy or if Mythonia can get out of this one. Karn out of resources will not pass turn back over to Mythonia. At the end of Karn's turn, Mythonia is going to go ahead and blow up the Inquisitor with one of his copies of his murderer's hand. Instead of go to the graveyard again, Zentos Inquisitor's ability says instead of going to the graveyard when it dies, it will go back to his hand with a permanent cost of +2. So it's now a 5-drop troop instead of a 3-drop. Start of the turn, Mythonia draws another extinction. So he'll probably life siphon just to get some health back here. He does, and will choose to spend all 4 of his resources. Actually, no. He kind of faked out the audience there. It looked like he was going to play all 4 and use life siphon, but chose not to. I'm wondering if Mythonia is worried about any sort of speed card or anything like that of Karn, and wants to make sure he holds enough resources back to play the murder. Because again, if he played the life siphon, he'd be out of resources. Karn, without a speed trip, it looks like he's just going to swing the 1 damage to the charge bot at Mythonia. And that'll bring Mythonia down to 8. Malfunctioning Warbot coming out. That's a 2/2 troop for 2. As well as a Goblin Cooking Pot. Goblin Cooking Pot is a constant. It's a basic constant. A artifact constant, I'm sorry. That on your turn you can pay 2 and sacrifice it. And by doing that, you will deal 1 damage to opposing champion. They will have to discard a card, and you will draw a card. Malfunction Warbot is a 2/2 troop for 2, artifact troop. At the beginning of your turn, it deals 1 damage to a random champion. Mythonia, with no troops in hand to do any blocking, he'll go ahead and wipe the board with one of his copies of Extinction. Mythonia is down to 8 health due to the malfunctioning Warbot going and pinging him for 1. Actually, I'm sorry, that 1 health was from the charge bot last turn. I apologize. The malfunctioning Warbot only does damage at the beginning of Karn's turn because he is the owner. So there goes the troops off the board. The Goblin Cooking Pot will stay there because it is a constant, not a troop. And Mythonia, out of resources, will pass the turn back over. Karn will draw a card for turn, coming up to 4 cards. Go ahead and sacrifice the Goblin Cooking Pot. Mithonia will discard one of his copies of Extinction and go down to 7 health. Karn will pass turn. 4 cards in hand, 1 resource, not able to play anything. Mithonia, 3 cards in hand, will draw a card for turn. That card will be a Incantation of Fear. A 2-drop constant that says for each card that opponent puts in a graveyard, put an incantation counter on this constant. When it reaches 5 incantation counters, turns into a Maddening Nightmare, 6/4 troop. And at the beginning of each opponent's turn, they will reveal the top card, and you may choose to bury it if you wish to. Oh, that and all copies of incantation in all zones that you control turn into Maddening Nightmares as well. So if you have any other copies in your deck or your graveyard, they turn into Maddening Nightmare, which is a 2-cost 6/4 troop. Karn started his turn, draws a card, goes up to 5, passes his first main phase, passes his second main phase, 3 resources, 5 cards in hand. Don't know if he's resource stalled here, if he's waiting to blow up anything in Mithonia's. Mithonia draws an Incantation of Ascendance, which is the Sapphire version of the constant, which says anytime you draw a card, put a constant counter on here. When it reaches 5, turns into a Lightning Armada, which is a 2/2 troop, I believe has flight, and yes, it does have flight, and gains +2/+2 for each card you have in hand. So a couple of constants out on the board for Mithonia. Has to turn back over to Karn, who plays a Fang of the Mountain God. 1-cost troop, 2/2. At the beginning of your turn, deals 1 damage to you. Karn not really worried about this since he's at 25 health. I imagine Mithonia is going to murder that next turn. Karn passes turn back over. Mithonia will draw a card for turn, putting a counter on the Ascendance incantation. Draws a Bottle Vitae, a 1-cost artifact, which for 2 on your turn, you can sacrifice it, which he chooses to. Gain 1 health, draw 1 card. That puts another counter on Ascendance, bringing it to 2, as he showed you. He draws another incantation of Ascendance, which again, once that first one transforms, it transforms all copies in all zones. So the one in his hand will transform to a Lightning Armada as well. Passes turn to Karn, who Mithonia with only 1 resource can't murder that Fang when it swings next turn. It looks like we got a little bit of a stall here on this feed. There we go. So Karn will deal at least 2 damage next turn. Karn draws for turn, up to 6 cards in hand. 3 resources still. He will swing the Fang of the Mountain God for 2 damage. Mithonia will take it and go down to 6. 24 health for Karn. As he took that 1 health, 1 damage from the Fang being in play. So that's why he's down to 24. And I apologize again. Looks like we are having. There we go. Okay. In response to no blockers, Karn plays a Blood Aura on his Fang, which gives it +1/+1 and life drain, bringing Mithonia down to 5 instead of 6, and brings his life total to 27. But that does put a card in the graveyard. So the Incantation of Fear constant that Mithonia has did gain a counter there. Mithonia down to 5 health. You have to assume he's probably going to use Life Siphon next turn. The question will be, will he decide to murder the troop first? And then Life Siphon? If he doesn't draw any resource, that doesn't really help him. Life Siphon would net him 1 health, as he would go up to 9 health and then get dealt 3 damage from the Fang next turn. So we'll see how he decides to play this. Karn is in his second main phase right now and has priority. So Mithonia is waiting on him to pass that priority over. Without any resources, his turn's going to be done. He does pass it over. Mithonia will draw a card for turn, bring that counter up to 3. There's a Blood Shard. So, yep, he does go ahead and murder. So that will put another card in the graveyard, putting 2 counters onto the Incantation of Fear. Or bringing the total of counters up to 2. And he will go ahead and play a shard for turn there, bring his temporary resources up to 2 and his permanent up to 5. Tony has 3 cards in hand: Extinction, Life Siphon, and another Incantation of Ascendance. I doubt he'll want to use his Life Siphon for 2 here. He'll probably wait till next turn to use it for 5. The Lightning Armada is going to be a huge card for him. So we'll see how this works out. If he can get his counters up to 5. Again, because it's a constant already in play, when it converts into a troop, it will not have the necessity of waiting 1 turn in order to be able to attack immediately. Normally, when a troop comes into play, unless it has speed, it has to wait 1 turn before it can attack, or use any activated abilities that cause it to exhaust. Karn plays a charge bot, and passes turn, so Karn is stuck on 3 resources. So Mythonium may have a chance to get back in here. Draws a card for turn, bring the counters on the Incantation of Ascendance up to 4. Incantation of Fear is up to 2. Now Mythonium's got 6 resources, so he will go ahead and use a Life Siphon here for 6. That will give him a little more time in hand. It should allow him to make his way through this last turn here before his Incantation of Ascendance will transform when he draws a card for next turn. So this could be a turning point. Karn will go down to 21 health. Mythonium will go up to 11. So Mythonium will be in much more comfortable shape. What it looked like was, if not, Karn could have swung with the charge bot, burned for 1, well, burned for 2 damage for 1 resource, played the other 2 resources for Life Siphon, and called it a day. So Mythonium doesn't have to worry about that now. Karn draws a card for turn, bringing his total up to 6. There is a Shamed Gladiator. Will deal 2 damage to Karn, bring him down to 19, but he has the speed gem so he can attack immediately. So it looks like Karn will be swinging 3 at Mythonium, bringing him down to 8. It'll be interesting to see how Mythonium plays this. I imagine he'll probably extinct next turn, unless he pulls a Life Siphon, because he'll be able to attack with... He'll extinct... No, he can't extinct because he'll catch his own Lightning Armada. As soon as he draws the card for turn, it will transform, which it does. If he extincts the board, he'll lose his Armada he just got out in play. The 2/2 +2/+2 for each card in hand, so we'll see it transform to an 8/8. There it goes. So I'd imagine he'll probably Life Siphon here. He'll probably swing for 8 first. Life Siphon for 6. Be 14 damage, bring Karn down to 5. He's in good shape here. Unless Karn's got a murder or something like that to get the Lightning Armada off the board, this will be game next turn. So a huge turn of events there. Karn getting stuck with only have 3 resources. Mythonium having the Life Siphon to buy him another couple turns. This definitely was a turning point. Mythonium at 14, Karn at 5. You see the Lightning Armada go down to 6/6 from a 8/8 because the Life Siphon's now no longer in his hand. So Karn looking to get a murder here. He may have been holding a murder. He's got 5 cards in hand. He's been holding them for a while, and without Mythonium having any troops in play, the murder was useless up to this point in time. So we'll see how this plays out. Karn draws a card for turn, goes up to 5 cards. Trying to figure out what just happened. None of Karn's cards readied that. I'm sorry, I should start his turn. I apologize. We haven't got to the prep phase yet. It looks like there's a little bit of hang up there. There we go. There they go. Ready. There we go. Got to get my phases in order here, sir. Start turn, then ready phase, then prep phase. And then draw phase once we get there. Karn has to pass priority, though. But that'll bring him to 6 cards in hand. Getting a little ahead of myself here. Alright, Karn, 6 cards in hand. First main phase, drops a Blood Guard. Lights up his champion charge power. They'll bring him up to 6 life and Mithonia down to 13. He still has to get some form of health or get that Lightning Armada off the board. The Lightning Armada is swinging for 6, and that's all Karn has. So we'll see if that's it, or see if Karn will just concede here. With the delay, it's looking at Karn. If Karn had a murder, he'd have played it by now. Passing priority. He could have an extinction too. He may choose to swing here for 3, and then extinct on his second main phase. Go ahead and get the damage from the cards he has in play. We'll see how this works. Again, apologize for the feed. It's a little choppy here, and we're getting a little delays in between phases here. Karn will swing his 3. And that'll bring Mithonia down to 10. So, will we see an extinction? An extinction would actually help out Mithonia here. There's a Blood Aura. That's a good card, because that will give whatever he gives it to, probably the Gladiator. Yep, it's a 3/3 now, plus life drain. That'll buy him some time. I was going to say, if he extincts the board, though, that's going to put enough counters on the Incantation of Fear. I believe that gives him 5 counters. Yeah, because the Blood Aura went in. If he extincts the board, which it didn't do, that would have actually activated the Incantation of Fear. So, let's see what Mithonia decides to do here. He could play the Lightning Armada. Which that should turn into an 8/8. There it goes. Okay, a little bit of delay on that. Swing first and play a card second. It'll be interesting. Maybe he'll extinct on... Yeah, he may play Extinction, go ahead and bring out the Incantation of Fear. He doesn't have to worry about any shenanigans, because if Karn were to draw a resource, he'd have been able to Life Siphon and swing for the 4 for the win. So Mithonia doesn't take any chances, wipes the board. That'll put enough counters on the Incantation of Fear, turn into Maddening Nightmare, which you just saw it transform. That'll be a 6/4. And, yep, there it goes. And now at the beginning of Karn's turn, when he draws one, Mithonia can choose whether or not he wants to bury that. So, this should be game, unless Karn's got a murder in hand. And did that not activate? Interesting, that should have activated there. Usually, again, this is Hex Alpha for anybody who's trying to figure out what's going on here. It is an alpha version of the game, so some of these cards don't work as quite intended yet. Karn will play a 3/3 life drain, Corrupt Harvester, which can't be blocked except by blood or artifact troops, which is fine, because Mithonia's got one. Mithonia's got a Persecute in hand, which will take it right off the board, which should end the game. Karn with no resources at hand, that will do it. So, Karn with 1 health, no resources, no cards to block. Mithonia will win next turn. So, Mithonia, or MythicFishMom, got there with his incantations. He tried to get there in the first game on episode 14 of Shardcast. Wasn't able to do it. Was able to show our audience how this deck was meant to be played. As you can see, if you've got enough control out there, it can be a force with both the Lightning Armadas and the Maddening Nightmares. So, Mithonia for the win. And basically it's just formality. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it is a common practice to go ahead and play out the game. Well, depending. Some people play out the game just because we are in an alpha stage to make sure there's no other bugs to be found. Again, we aren't supposed to be playing this for the sake of bragging rights at this point in time. A lot of people do, including myself. But this is meant to be played to find any bugs in the game, so a lot of people will play this all the way till the finish and not concede. Karn chooses to go ahead and concede at the end of his turn. So that is game. Mithonia or MythicFishMom taking game 2 of the doubleheader between Mythic Fish Mom and Karn. So 1-1. Mythic Fish Mom proving that this deck can work, even against the same opponent that pretty much had his way with in the first game. But we thank Mythic Fish Mom again and Karn for the wonderful show of sportsmanship there and a beautiful exhibition. Going up a couple of decks there featuring the XTCG Alpha. So tune in next time on our following episode of Shardcast. Until then, so long. Brace yourself.